Russia and China's relationship has strengthened. Should we be concerned? Excellent question. This deals with Russia and China. Russia and China have a complicated relationship, to say the least. What you are actually asking is, does Vladimir Putin trust Xi Jinping? Does Russia trust China? So that is the issue we have to really look into in order to answer this question. So yes, right now Russia and China seem to be allies. They are working together on various global international forums. They have alliances in various places, in Iran, for example, in Pakistan, in Afghanistan, and many other places. You have the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. It's called something like that, and they are cooperating on many other fronts. So there seems to be a great deal of cooperation and work in tandem between these two powers. But let's look under the hood, shall we? Because if you know history, if you study history, then it tells you much more than what you can see at the surface level today. So let's peel back the layers of this relationship, and let's just go back less than 100 years. Let's so when China became when Mao Zedong and the Communist Party took over China, they defeated the Kuomintang in Chiang Kai-shek, exiled the Kuomintang to Taiwan. So that's when Mao became the undisputed supreme leader of China, the dictator of China. And Mao Zedong was greatly inspired by Joseph Stalin. So Mao Zedong aspired to be like Joseph Stalin and acquire the kind of power and untrammeled influence that Joseph Stalin had. So he hero worshipped Stalin, but Stalin always treated Mao Zedong like a junior colleague, right? So that was the relationship between Mao and Stalin. After Stalin died, I think it was Nikita Khrushchev who came to power. And Mao Zedong and Nikita Khrushchev tried to have a good relationship between the two countries. But again, the Russians were way more powerful and way larger than the Chinese, and they always treated the Chinese with disdain. So this, in brief, led to something called the Sino-Soviet split. So despite being Marxist, communist, socialist nations, these two countries drifted apart and they actually became adversaries. It came to the point that Russia, not under Khrushchev, but under Brezhnev, even contemplated a nuclear strike on the Chinese because things were getting out of control. So let me talk about the events of 1969. And let me do that by showing you a map. So let's go to this map. We all know, can you see my pointer? Yeah, you can see my pointer now. So we know where India is. Let's go eastwards. Let's zoom in. This is occupied Tibet and Xinjiang. We go eastwards. This is China. And this here is Russia. If you can see my pointer, this is Russia, present day Russia. And Russia extends all the way down south here to Vladivostok, which is just north of North Korea. So in 1969, somewhere around here, let me find the region. Let me find the place. This is the boundary of Russia and China. It is the Ussuri River. This river forms the present boundary of Russia and China, the present international border. So in 1969, over here at Zhenbao Island, what is now known as Zhenbao Island, in 1969, this island was in Russian, it was Russian territory. So in 1969, the Chinese army launched a military raid on this island and it killed dozens of Russian soldiers. And the Russians retaliated, killed many more Chinese, and the nations were at war. It was an undeclared war over this particular island. And things went so bad, like I said, the Russians even contemplated a nuclear strike on China. And this escalated much further beyond this particular region. It went, the tension spilled over to Xinjiang. So Russia and China, this is, as you can see, it's north of India. My pointer is here. Between Mongolia and Kazakhstan, there's a little piece of land about 50 kilometers long or so, which is the border between Russia and China. Over here also there was a border clash. So the situation was very tense between these two countries. It was kind of like what we have on the India-Tibet border currently. So there were armed clashes, people died, soldiers died, and things nearly went very bad. But then the Americans intervened, and Richard Nixon threatened the Russians with war if they nuked China. So the Americans saved China from being nuked by the Russians. And this border dispute lasted for a very long time between Russia and China. The Shenbao Island was properly demarcated, this region, in 1991 only. And it was only in 1998 that Russia and China finally completely demarcated their border. And yet, China keeps raising issues with the border. It kind of recently tried to claim Vladivostok, the port of Vladivostok. So this situation under the hood is very complicated. It's quite tense. There is a lot of history, and there's a lot of bad blood between Russia and China. And you may not know this, but Russia has pointed nuclear missiles at China, long range ballistic nuclear missiles. And even on the stretch of border I showed you between in north of Xinjiang, Russia has deployed short range Iskander ballistic missiles, nuclear ballistic missiles, and pointed them towards China. As we speak right now, that is the situation. So, should we be concerned about the Russia-China relationship? And the real question is, does Vladimir Putin trust Xi Jinping? So, my question is, do you think Vladimir Putin trusts anybody? He does not. Vladimir Putin is a hard realist. He does not trust China. He doesn't trust Xi Jinping. He knows that he is in a militarily advantageous situation compared to China. He has an enormous military. He has a military so strong that even the Americans are afraid of it. The disadvantage he has is that he has a very long border and a great amount of land that is closer to China than to Moscow. So this situation is still very tense despite external appearances. I do not see Russia and China having a good long-term relationship. It will eventually go south again because China's ambition is to be the sole power, the sole geopolitical power in the world. It will not countenance a second power center anywhere. And that is what it's working towards. So eventually, sooner rather than later, the relationship is going to turn bad. It's only a matter of time. But when that happens is to be seen. Will it happen this decade or the next one? Most likely, for the time being, at least, it's going to be a reasonably good relationship these next 5 or 10 years at most. And then, as China gets more powerful, Russia will feel threatened, and you will see something happening, something very interesting happening.